welcome to this week's episode of Two Yellows Make a Red. We're hitting off with some pretty big news from Scottish football already this week, and that is the resignation of Neil Lennon as Celtic manager. It seemed like it's a long time coming. I don't know whether it was a case of he jumped before he was pushed, but if you're a Celtic fan, and I know there's at least one that listens to this podcast, let us know your thoughts on Neil Lennon's resignation in the comment section. And does this tarnish his legacy as a Celtic legend in your eyes? But I suppose we'll just kick on with everybody's reaction. Scott, what was your reaction to the news? And do you think it was the right time for Lennon to go, or too little too late?
Oh, I think if anybody says that now is the right time to go, I think they've been, even if you're not a Celtic fan, you've been hiding somewhere, because this Celtic caper has been going on far too long this season. I know a few Celtic fans, and you can see how annoyed and just worked up they've been this season, just at how, what has happened this year. It just seems to have been one bad result after another. Then Dubai came, then it was more bad results, and it just, nothing ever got going for them this season. And Lennon, he's been making a lot of excuses. At times they've maybe been excuses, but there has been times where he's maybe got a point with certain players, maybe not pulling their weight or whatever like that. But no, I was going to be shocked if he ended the season, and he actually was starting to get close to doing that. Yeah. But yeah,
I kind of thought that
I'm not
got to the point where, I thought he was going to get sacked ages ago, basically, and I thought they just got to the point where they were going to ride it out with him until the end of the season. So I'm kind of surprised that he's resigned now, because there were so many times when he'd been under more pressure and from the media prior to this week. I feel like everybody kind of just accepted that they'd lost the 10 in a row and it was kind of petering out. So I don't know, Ryan, it just feels odd that he has resigned now, and when he could have resigned earlier on or been sacked so many times, it's going to just happen.
Yeah, the timing was definitely what kind of threw me for a bit. When I heard the news, it was obviously rumoured on Tuesday night and then confirmed yesterday morning. So it was obviously no great surprise, especially on the back of that result against Ross County. But as you guys are saying, there's been other points in the season where you thought he was definitely going to go. I mean, the one that springs to my mind is after the ill-fated trip to Dubai. And he was just, instead of trying to make excuses, he went on the counter-offensive against the media. And I just felt like at that point, he'd completely lost the plot. I thought at that point he would go.
He was kind of at odds with the board as well, wasn't he? I can't remember exactly what was said, but there was real, you could see a real rift there.
Yeah, definitely.
I don't know. Maybe if his status as a Celtic legend afforded him a bit more time than maybe somebody else would have had, But I mean, it's not like the fans weren't calling for it. It had the board sacked Neil Lennon. I don't think anybody would have complained, really. So yeah, it's a strange one. Who comes to mind as a potential successor, and when do you think they might appoint someone, Scott?
I think that's the $1 million question right now. Who's wanting the? I suppose no, that's not the right thing to say. I think there'll be a lot of managers would want the Celtic job. It's a lucrative job. It's a massive club, but they've got a big rebuilding job to do this summer. Whoever it is, they've got. I think I can't remember what pundit it was, but somebody talked about a potentially something like 12 to 15 signings will be needed. And it'll need to be just scrapped and start again, basically. You'll have a few guys still there, but it'll be a scrap and start again job.
I think it was Michael Stewart on BBC said they needed 15 players to build a team around football.
I think it was, now you say his name, but I think I've seen the same sort of 2 or 3 names getting bandied around. And then I actually heard somebody else saying something about another one. So the 3 that I've heard is Eddie Howe, Slaven Bilic was brought into question earlier today, which he's been a Premier League manager, so he can handle, I suppose, with bigger clubs, but I thought it was a bit of a strange one. And then obviously Rafa Benitez. But if you're going by style of play and stuff like that, I just don't see how Celtic can actually go and try and say that Rafa Benitez would be a good appointment. Rafa Benitez has had success as a manager, but it's certainly not playing attacking football. And that's what Celtic basically live on, is attacking, free-flowing football. And I just think it would be a backward step, and it wouldn't be fun to watch, or it wouldn't be enjoyable to watch for Celtic fans. And I think they might like the appointment at the start, but I think they could be regretting it come sort of January next season, going, oh, this isn't good to watch at all.
Yeah, so I'm going to make 2 points. One of them I'm going to kind of backtrack slightly on to the previous point we're making, and then I'm going to make another one and throw it back to you guys.
Yeah.
So I suppose my first point is, in terms of the timing, like realistically, who's going to want to take over now? As kind of Scott was saying, it's probably going to be an appointment in the summer. It's probably going to be John Kennedy. Is that the right name? John Kennedy?
Yeah.
Like John Kennedy in charge to the end of the season, because who's going to want to, like, what big manager is going to want to come in now, mid-season? The title is all but lost. Like, it's not an ideal situation to get your feet in.
I suppose your only counter argument to that, Ryan, would be kind of, he didn't do it himself, but Gerrard was announced sort of at the end of a season, but with a few games still to play. Same with Caixinha. When he was appointed near the end of the season. And I suppose for them, it gives them a few weeks to realise, right, who do I still want, and who do I need to get rid of? It gives them that sort of time to go, instead of now having to just look in pre-season, and you know how quickly the Scottish clubs go into Europe because of the coefficient. You can't afford to be waiting around in the summer.
Another factor is that Dominic Mackay, the new chief executive, or the incoming chief executive that's replacing Peter Lawwell, doesn't start until June, I think. Yeah. So whether he's involved in the decision-making process now or not, I think will have a bearing on whether they appoint somebody.
It's true.
I would be surprised if they appointed somebody without his consultation, given that he's going to be coming in and basically effectively running the club. So if they are, if he is consulting with them and giving them the kind of green light to go and get somebody, then you may see someone brought in. But the most logical one at the moment, I think, is John Kennedy till the end of the season, or at least until Mackay comes in and picks his man. But yeah, and sorry, you had a second point.
Yeah, I mean, I'm obviously not a Celtic fan, far from it, but I feel like
you're completely unbiased, Ryan. Completely.
Of course, yeah. But I feel like any manager coming in now, it's going to be an absolutely thankless task, because like the season's been so much a write-off. They would have to like win the remaining 10 games or something, or I'm pretty sure the Celtic fans would just like not be happy, just because obviously all that kind of resentment and ill feeling that's been brought about by the season up to this point.
I think so. I was just going to say, I think they need I remember when they appointed Lennon after Rodgers, there was a bit of a deflated reaction from the Celtic fans, and I feel like the Celtic fans are going to want not necessarily a big name, but they're going to want someone that can excite them, someone that they can look at and say, okay, we'll be back next year under you. That's what they're looking for, I think.
I mean, obviously, we don't know the story, because we're not like a flies on the wall or anything. But it seemed very much to me like it was an emotional appointment. Like, you seem to get the job on the back of winning the Scottish Cup, and I feel like whilst what he lacks in sort of household name and like top manager billing, he more than makes up for passion. Obviously, Lennon, but I feel like the appointment of Lennon was a backward step from Rodgers, just like tactically and just, I don't know, just everything.
It was the safe option. They went for the safe option, and there were other issues. I think there were other issues over transfer policy and not integrating new signings, becoming too reliant on certain players and individuals. I think there were other issues, but I think Lennon, his style or whatever, his tactics, it just compounded, and basically they were trying to coast out to the 10 and the fan, And
I think finally getting to my second point about 15 years later, I feel like in isolation it's not been a terrible season for Celtic, because I'm sure I read a thing that they're like on track to match their 2017-18 total points total under Rodgers. I mean, they've only lost, lost the 4 games in the SPL. But I just think it's the manner of the defeats and the teams that they've been losing to, like Ross County's, like losing to, and it was at the second qualifying round to like Florent Varkos. Just like, it's that side. It's not been good enough.
One name that my dad actually mentioned, and I think I had seen the bookies, but I'm not sure whether he would be ready to leave international management, was Bobby Martinez. You think?
Yeah, I've seen that as well.
I think he'd be a great caliber. I don't know whether he'd leave Belgium. I do know that Sean Maloney's his assistant. It probably would be too big a job for him.
I've heard a few Celtic fans on social media talking about. I know it's not a time to joke about and try and get rebuilding, but why not give somebody that knows the club inside and out, played for the club, a shot?
I know Maloney has
proved to be a very good coach so far as well.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I know that Martinez and the Belgian FA and that are raving about him, so he is like a hot young prospect. Yeah. It's just the kind of classic, like, does he want to, like you were saying earlier, Ryan, like it's such a big job, such a big time. Like, if you're Maloney, do you really want to take it now?
But
I suppose on the flip side, that obviously if he does come in and do well, then obviously that's only going to be beneficial for him.
I mean, Rangers was a pretty big first job for Gerrard, so...
I think one that everybody, his name's getting bandied around, and quite rightly so for what he did at Bournemouth. But Eddie Howe, everyone keeps saying, the size of the club. He's never managed somebody the size of this club, just because he's managed Burnley and Bournemouth, who are smaller clubs in England. But I don't think anybody can go into the Old Firm and say, I can or can't handle it, until they are in the hot seat, are in front of the media, in front of the fans, week in and week out. I don't think anybody can say whether they can handle it or not until they're in, as I say, in the hot seat doing it. But I actually think that Eddie Howe would play the style of football that Celtic want to play, the Celtic way, as they basically say all the time. But I don't see why.
You could just see Ryan's face twitching when you were mentioning the Celtic way and how great to play. Ryan's like, must retain unbiased.
What did you guys make of the Frank Lampard? I'm sorry, Scott, didn't mean to cut you off there.
No, I was just rounding it off just to say that I don't see why Celtic fans are kind of binning off the potential of getting somebody like Eddie Howe, who was at one point a bit like Maloney, a young guy who went into coaching and has built up a name for himself, playing or a very good first team coach. Then Eddie Howe went into management, and when Bournemouth came up to the Prem, they were playing some tremendous stuff first couple of seasons. I think he just got to the end of his time where his players that got him to that point were all getting older, likes of Steve Cook, Charlie Daniels. They were all coming to mid-30s, and they couldn't play that style of football anymore. And I think that's why it petered out. But I think Eddie Howe should be considered for it. That's my opinion, though.
Yeah, no, I definitely echo that. I think Eddie Howe would be a great appointment, as you say, Scott. Where he took Bournemouth from and to, I think it was at League Two they were in when he first took over, and obviously take them all the way to the Prem and have a good few seasons in there, with a few sort of decently placed finishes, especially for a a team the size of Bournemouth. But yeah, sorry, as I was saying before, what do you guys make of the Frank Lampard links? Is that pure press and fantasy conjecture, or do you think there's something in it?
It's a Hollywood,
just to get Lampard against Gerrard.
It's the Hollywood booking. It's the Gerrard Lampard who's better, and what better amphitheatre to play that one out than Glasgow, which is the ultimate theatre of one-upmanship. So, do you know, I can't see Lampard taking it, but it would be brilliant. It would just be, I mean, for the, like we say, for the theatre of it, the drama, it would be brilliant. But
for banter reasons, it genuinely would be the ideal appointment. But I don't think I think Lampard now needs to probably go and just settle down probably over this summer, and then just wait for another club to come around. That's maybe not an easy. There's no job that's an easy job, but go for somebody that's a bit, I don't know, that's not so crucial to get success straight away, basically, which Celtic are. he wants somewhere, I think, to go and build up his career again, because this Chelsea sacking will hit him hard, I reckon. The fact that he's been a legend at the club as a player, I just don't see how he could just put that to the side and then straight away go back into a management job pretty quickly.
Yeah. Okay, so that's been our 2 cents on Neil Lennon's resignation and who we think should replace him as manager at Celtic. If you have any ideas yourself, to the folk listening, drop a comment down below. If not, remember to like and subscribe, share the video with your friends, and otherwise we'll see you in the next one.